Welcome to the show, PGS. Great to have you
Thank
on
you.
board, and I hope we have a lovely conversation. So, why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't we go back to the 1986 when you graduated from IIT BHU and life stretched before you, and you were thinking of what needs to be done next? Why don't we go back into those memories and see where things go from here?
Okay, good. It's actually always a great pleasure to back to anything before 86 because those 4 years of being in hostel with all of this still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, right.
And 86 is when the campus interview started, and a very interesting experience of campus interview. And I must share it that I was not the top rankers in the. I was just a and I had two opportunities when I started my campus jobs. One was with Tata Ceramics, which was in somewhere in Orissa. I forgot the name of the place. The other one was with ITC Bhadrachalam Paper Boards. That time it was known as that. Now, of course, it's known as ITC Limited Paper Division. I Very interestingly, I chose ITC over Tata Ceramic that time, though the fact that Tata was a very strong name in the campus and Tata Ceramic was paying me more also. It's very funny. I mean, the salary paid offered by Tata Ceramic to me was at least 15% more. And those days, the starting salary was 1,400 at ITC for me, and 15% more over 1,400 would have met quite a lot for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a big money then. One of the reasons why I chose, and that's where my thinking process started in terms of which one to choose and where to move. The guys who came to interview me. So when I discuss with people on campus interviewing, I like to narrate this to them always. The guys who came to interview from Tata Ceramic were normal bureaucrat look, mechanical look, mechanical transaction, no emotions attached to interview. It was very normal process. But the guys who
For them,
came
it was
from
another day at the
ITC to
office.
do the interview, exactly. So it was very mechanical, you know.
Okay.
And the guys who came from
It's
ITC, very
amazing
senior
how
guys,
the
the
interview,
HR head.
sorry, it's, yeah, it's amazing how these interactions give you your first impression of how the company's atmosphere and what the environment in which you work is likely to be.
Exactly,
So it's some
exactly,
of these things
exactly.
you have a sixth sense about what is the kind of person who's interviewing me and what are the questions they ask. So if they go through the motions, then you get the feeling that, yeah, that is
Yes,
exactly how life will be at this place. Sorry, I just cut it.
exactly.
Uh,
Oh, no, it's
okay.
wonderful. I think you summarized it beautifully.
Uh,
One was commercial and another person was HR head. I still remember their name. And look the impact. Tata Ceramic, I don't even remember who came. But I remember the gentleman's name was P.H. Rao.
wow.
And yeah. And amazing questions, amazing. And for
Okay.
giving me the offer letter, they called us for dinner at the hotel where they were staying.
Wow. Okay.
Now, as a student, you get excited when someone senior calls you for a dinner, nothing like
Right.
that. So you
It's a
went
very
there, you had
important at
dinner,
those age,
me
at
and
that
along with
age.
me one my classmate.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was fun. On the dinner table, they did not discuss a single word. They were just having
Wow.
fun.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where I think it can work.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and I think that drove to a large extent a decision that I made for joining ITC Bhadrachalam Paper Boards. Like most of the students who wanted job, for me this was a great job. Of course, there were students
Right.
who also wanted to do higher studies. They went for that. While I always loved to do research, but that's not something that I could have afforded that time. I had to start my
Okay.
earning, so that's how I got into it.
Okay. So then the
Wonderful.
choice
I mean,
was limited to which company should I join because I have to get a job.
exactly.
I don't have much of a
Yes.
choice in terms of whether I can work or delay that process. So let me at least make the best
Yes.
of what I have right now. And at least that first step is something where I'm reasonably sure that I will learn from this company, even if I don't earn the same amount of money.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. No, I think
So
I learned a
between these
lot.
two,
I think I learned a lot.
okay, I just want to stick with the interview
Yeah.
part for a little while longer because I think that's one of the things that people tend to gloss over as to. I think we discussed it where you said when senior people from the company actually come for the interview and spend that time, it actually makes a big difference to the candidate who's being interviewed. It's not just about
True.
the questions asked, it's also about how much of importance is accorded to that. And like you said, they even converted the process of handing over the letter into one of those dinner occasions. It could have been handed officially and then said, okay, come and join. But they
Exactly.
spent that time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yes.
these are the little things
So
I think which make a world of
yeah.
difference. Yeah.
So, in fact, I tell
Okay,
this
then.
to my colleagues on
Okay.
just one small thing on that particular point. I tell this often to the people who are into recruitment or people who are doing interviews. I tell them that, guys, you are not hiring, you are selling your company to a candidate.
Yes.
Even the hiring managers need to work as a sales manager.
Right. Right. That's true.
Yeah.
But in these days, sometimes I wonder, ever since the IT boom started, where companies recruit 20, 30,000 people a year, some of these things have just become. I mean, I doubt if there is more than 5 or 7 minutes spent on each candidate, or even less, depending on how things evolve. When you break it down and then say if a company has to take in so many people in a given calendar year, that directly reduces the amount of time, the resources that are available, and everything else that follows. So sometimes I
That's
think
probably
even
commoditization of hiring process.
so how do you think that while we've been able to do it tremendously well, I think Indian IT companies did a great job of being able to hire huge numbers of people in the early days, and that scaling was an important reason for their success. But since you've worked with tech solutions and you've worked with IT companies, what do you think? What did they do to ensure that they got those numbers in? How did they have to change internally?
One, I think the process becomes very important. It's very important. And
Okay.
that's why, if you look at most of the initial bulk hiring processes, there was a concept of shadowing. One person is attached with one senior person to work with always.
Okay.
No, that
Okay. So that's a
process was adopted by many people, and I think that worked well. And many
okay.
industries were into health business, that was possible for them to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So then, why don't you tell us what happened once you joined Bhattarachalam, ITC Bhattarachalam? What happened from there?
Right. So, me and my classmate landed up at ITC Bhadrachalam Paper Boards. we found there were another 25, 30 people that they had hired.
Okay.
I think the life suddenly became that you are going in shifts. Our entire
Okay.
learning process was on shift. Morning 6 o'clock, you need to punch in. It
Okay.
was initially difficult because in college I can afford to bunk classes. First two classes I will
You
not
can
go,
do
or
that in
last
the
two
job.
classes
Yeah.
I will not attend.
Yeah.
I can't do that in job, and that too where there I have supposed to punch the card. You know,
Yeah.
so if you have to
You
punch
can't
the
even
card, you
fake
need
it.
to
Yeah.
be there.
Right.
Can't even fake that. Yeah, and second, the freewheeling is not possible if you are inside the factory, and that's a factory environment. I cannot afford to roam around because I don't know what kind of risk I would be putting myself in if I have to roam around. I need to
Right.
walk very carefully. I need to sound very carefully. So I think in terms of the mind, okay. But at the same time, for me, while I know that the rest of the 20, 30 people who joined, they will come to the office, punch card, come out, and then possibly, talk about what happened, didn't happen. I started using the time even for, because that's
Okay.
I need to learn a lot. I must thank three people of my first job who enabled me to do that.
Okay.
One was my own mentor in the first job. His name was Mr. P. Pardesi, an amazing boiler man. I mean, he, I know he was just an ordinary BSc physics guy, but he had such a huge knowledge of boiler that even the boiler manufacturer will consult with him. So he made me think. He used to call me Subbu. He said, Subbu, don't get stuck with what you are doing. Learn something different, learn something more. Oh, he will say in Hindi to me, "Yahan phas jaoge nahi to." Then you
Okay.
will get stuck. So you start learning more. There are two
So,
other
what is the
people,
first
one called Sunil
job?
Shawnee
This
and
thing description. What were you doing on that
Boiler.
the first few days or the first few months on the job? What was your? What is it that you were
Shift.
required to do?
In the
Shift,
shift,
yes, but once you
go in the
got in,
shift, manage.
okay,
Yeah. So prepare the report, note down the readings, take the walk of the
okay,
plant, find out if something is working, something not working,
okay,
coordinate with maintenance guys to come and repair.
okay,
Entire shift operation of plant running.
okay, okay.
So that was
So
my
this was a
shift job,
24
and it
hour.
was 8 hours packed. Yeah, 24
Okay,
bar 7 plant.
okay,
So I have worked into job for 2 days, 6 to 2, 2 days, 2 to 10, and 2 days night shift of 10 to 6.
okay. So you literally
Yeah.
got into the grind straight away. You understood what it meant to
Yes.
do a job
Yes.
regularly
Yes.
and follow a process, a
Yeah.
procedure.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So,
Yes. 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 And you have to do a lot
was
of
there,
testings in the lab there. Testing.
right, 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 right. So as you get to know it better, is there, as you get to know the job better, you also know if things are going all right most of the time. You also know if you're not, there isn't so much of work to do. It gets into a kind of routine, right?
Uh, Fortunately, the factory life, uh, very particularly in the day shifts, rarely it will get in routine because you will have a lot to do. Your
Okay,
time will be packed, and that too, I need to interact with senior operators to learn the nuances of the work,
okay,
and just they used to explain to us what's happening, what's not happening, and I had to learn them. In fact,
okay,
free time would be more in the night shift because night shift there is
okay,
not too much of new activity that we start. Night shift is just status
okay,
quo maintenance. I mean,
okay,
there could be some nights when you have a crisis and then you get into big deal. Otherwise, it was very relaxed, generally the night shift.
Okay. Okay. So at what point did you think that, apart from Mr. Pardesi telling you, when did you think that you needed to move on? What was the trigger, or how did you actually think of, okay, I've learned a certain amount of this thing here. What happens next?
So before getting into that, share few things which actually helped me even thinking of moving out. Otherwise, I might not have thought of moving out.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and I have seen this in many instances, including my own colleagues who have worked and joined along with the same time. They get so narrow focused that their ability to move
Okay.
I will need to have movements horizontal and just so believe, but I used to work
Okay.
at least 1.5 shift. I also had large number of books available
Hmm.
to read in the night shift.
Okay.
So being a paper manufacturer, we used to get imported books for processing.
Okay.
So I will
Okay.
go to the paper yard and pick up best of the books for my reading,
Okay. Okay.
and I will read them in the night shift. And I think
Okay.
that's where my reading habit started, and I think I continue even now. I mean, I think I
Yeah.
mentioned this to you that I clock almost 50
Yeah.
books a year. So
Right.
I
Right.
think that learning was very important. That diversified my thinking process. And thanks to two other people, Sunil Shawnee and Samba Murthy, they included me in some of the budgeting exercise of
Okay.
now. In the first 2 years, you getting an exposure to the budgeting exercise gives you a lot of understanding. So I was fortunate that way, and I also made use of the opportunity available. And it was towards the end of my fourth year when I started looking at my career progression. Started thinking, what should I be doing? What would I do? How would I start looking at it? Somewhere I had the zeal of diversifying my learning knowledge, from one field to another field. So diversify. And possibly that was also based on the thinking that I always had the desire for one or doing something my own. And I didn't know what to do because I don't come from a background where I can invest money. And in those days, you
Right.
didn't had so many VCs who will give you several rounds of money for funding. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I started thinking of going out and looking for a new job. But by then, I think I consolidated my position in such a way in the company that whether it is worker or the top man of the factory, everyone would run after me. They want me, right? For anything that comes, let's check with him. So I became a point of uh, what is called
So
how many
I
people.
just like to I just like to dig into that a little deeper, PGS. What exactly do you think made them do that way? Were you available to them? Did you solve their problem? Did you listen to them? Were you the kind of person who offered solutions? What happened there?
I think it's a combination of things. I
Okay.
won't put it as a formula. I won't put it as a formula. So, for
There
example,
isn't one. Yeah.
there isn't a formula.
Yeah.
So, for example,
Yeah.
for most seniors, it was my knowledge and my ability to structure the thoughts and the case became very important. And
Okay.
and that's how they started loving me because they knew that this guy is a okay. Two, I also never hesitated in doing things that are risky.
Huh.
And
Okay.
I think that opened up a lot for people. I became a point of attention. I'll give you one example which many, even my experienced colleagues started shouting, saying that PGS, you don't know what kind of risk you have taken. You could have just left it. I said, I can't leave it when it is happening in front of my eyes. So we used to handle chlorine, 100 tons a day, chlorine gas. And it's a very
Okay.
hazardous substance. Even at 3 ppm, you
Yeah.
will start coughing like anything. There was a cylinder at our gate, which
Okay.
we are still not owner. It has not come inside gate. It was truck was lying in the gate, and the cylinder started leaking. No one knew what to do. I took a decision. I was on the shift. It was a Sunday. I took a decision that take the cylinder inside, because outside we had methods to manage it. We brought the cylinder
Okay.
inside, we managed it and curtailed the leakage. And that was a huge risk. In fact, some of the seniors fired me, but the senior management had a lot of praise for me. Okay.
Okay.
So I think that brought myself into good books with a lot of senior people in the system. Among the employees, I think my relationship building skills were very helpful. I became so close to them that I could even know their family members, I could know what their children are doing, and so on and so forth. Fortunately, my multiple language speaking skills also was very handy. I could speak
Okay.
to them in Telugu, I could speak to them
Yeah.
in Hindi. So a lot of people became very, close to me from that perspective. And that led to a huge amount of, because workers will then do anything for me. In fact, I'm proud of my relationship skills in the first job, which I continue to had it later on. I tell this to
Hmm.
even today to very proudly. I remember there
Okay.
was one worker who was a part of the union member. I
Okay.
That was the only case on employee that I did. I never put any
Okay.
complaint on any employee to the HR in my career. But that was the only
Okay.
employee on whom I put the complaint, and that employee lost the job.
Wow.
And
Okay.
imagine, that guy was a union member.
Okay.
In those days, now unions are much weaker, but in those days unions used to be very strong. You can't just get rid of a union member from the company.
Yeah, you can't.
But I had tremendous support from the workers. I had tremendous
Okay.
support from the workers to help me in that. And that is only because of the relationship that you build both
That you
inside the
established.
factory as well as outside the factory. So I used to join their family functions, social service activities that used to happen. So I became wanted boy for everything in the colony also. And that's how I think it helped.
Yeah. And like you said, very often the job is one aspect of your life. The number of relationships that you
Correct.
cultivate, and this is not as if you were making. I think part of it is due to your nature. You are outgoing. You take risks. Some of these things, like you said, if people are not willing to take those risks, then there are other things that they have to discover. So all risks are not physical or financial.
Exactly.
Some of them are, they could be in
Sure.
various, but trying to figure out what. And I think what worked in your favor is that you were willing to learn, which a lot of, you know, one of the things early on is that if you don't spend time understanding the job, understanding the nuances of what is required, it just becomes that much more difficult. And like you said, it may not have been the most comfortable of environments. A factory environment is not comfortable in that sense of the word. And the timing is
Oh, I mean,
also,
by any chance, yeah, I
yeah,
can I can just give you one hint on the comfort level of the factory. The
okay,
temperature in my place will be 50 degrees centigrade in the months of May, April, May, June.
wow, wow.
50-degree centigrade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And that is, you had to do it for 8 hours on the trot. I mean, during the shift, it would be
Exactly.
that entire. Wow. Okay. Okay. But do you ever get
Yes.
used to it? I
Yes.
mean, is
See,
it
you
something
don't
that
have
you
an
get?
option.
Okay.
You get used to it. You get used to it. See, you will not get used to it if you crib about it.
Yeah.
If you
Exactly.
understand that this is the environment in which one has to work, do, and learn there, you will get used to it and you will find out ways and means of managing it.
Right.
The problem happens only when you decide on what environment you want to work and you don't make best use of the environment that you have.
Yeah.
And I believe in the later. I believe in the later. I need to make best use of the environment that I have before
Right.
I environment.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I mean, today I can afford to create my environment. I can decide where I want to work. I can decide what I want to work. But in the few years, I think it is exploiting what is available to you is more important than thinking about what should be made available to me.
Right. Right. And that gives you an experience of what really happens on the shop floor, on the factory shop floor. So it's not as if these problems are
Yes.
pushed into some background or you're reading them from a book. You've actually experienced all of it.
No. Yeah, they're all real life problems.
They're all real life
Real life
problems.
problems. I
And
mean,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And so the solutions that you think of will be something that can be fitted into that environment. It's not it's not a point
Exactly.
of view. Why don't we do it?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So
And
because there are other
and
constraints, there
most
could
of
be
my
financial
solutions will not
constraints.
be perfect also. Correct.
They
And
can't
most
be.
of my
They can't be.
solutions will perfect also. But
Like you said,
no one worries about
either.
it. As long as problem is
Yeah.
solved in the floor, it moves.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you were saying a combination of things happened for you to move on from. You spent 2 years at ITC Bhadrachalam or more.
4 years. 4 years.
4 years. Okay. Okay. And then what happened? How did it actually lead to the next uh,
Yeah.
job that you were looking at?
To Bhadrachalam was, yeah, yeah, 50 kilometer.
Okay. I think there's some lag in
So
the thing. Are you able to hear me or
between, I lost you, but
you've come back? Okay. Yeah, I think there was some dip in the thing. So
yeah,
so you told me earlier that there were
yeah.
conditions that finally got you to thinking about making the move. So what were they? What happened?
So couple of things. One, I think in my third year of job there, I got married, and my wife is also that time pursuing CA. She subsequently
Okay.
became chartered accountant. Plus, for me also to start exploring my learning and deploying them for a better use. Okay, enough experience of paper industry because I didn't want it to get labeled as a paper man. I said I need to move on to get different experience, and that's where I started looking for it. And fortunately, I think one or two interviews I got the next client.
Okay.
Was another great company in those days.
Yeah. It was into
Nothing
flavors, right?
actually,
What was the
the trigger was more internal for me. It to get flavor and it's more to me. I actually had no problem in the job. In fact, people, I mean, were surprised that I am quitting the job there. And I was one person. I mean, I still enjoy that thinking process itself. Workmen, they gave me four farewells, four different farewell party to me by the workmen because
okay.
they are all in shift. they can't all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you,
So imagine
okay.
just workmen alone gave me 4 farewells.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I was someone who was liked by everyone. So it was little emotional departure from my first job. There is no doubt about it. Even for me, it was
Right.
emotional because I was so deeply rooted involved in society itself there, that it was little emotional,
Okay.
but it was necessary for me to move on for widening my own learning. And in fact,
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
move on with great, like today people talk about moving with 50% and then double promotion, triple promotion, and all those things. Nothing like that. I moved horizontally.
Okay.
Okay. But it was a
Okay.
great movement for me because I learned a lot.
So what happened at the second company that you worked with?
Second company was again very interesting and very extremely learning opportunity for me. That is the company where I was exposed to data, number crunching skills, all
Okay.
those things I got used to it. I was handling I was more like a technical assistant to the general manager. And in those days, general manager was almost number 2 in the organization. He is big boss. I mean, he's the boss
Okay.
kind of thing. That was the first company where I had real exposure of working on computers also. Till that time in my life, I never touched a computer. So that is the when I started learning, and uh,
Okay.
and I think the learning was very multitude there because I had exposure to reporting, MIS, R&D, okay, and managing the
Okay.
works. So I think it was a very wide-ranging exposure, and very technical exposure also, including managing the effluents and pollutions because very polluting business it was. So I had exposure onto that. I continued to be there with them for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then I found that this company was not doing good. The company was not doing good. And that was a problem
Okay.
for me because when company doesn't do good, investments becomes a problem. Okay. And you are in a in a ship that is sinking. And one of the reason why it was sinking was management itself. The investors were not very keen on pursuing it. It's very unfortunate for that company because Hylam was a synonym to products that time. Like you call any vanaspati ghee as dalda, any
Hmm.
varnish was called Hylam in those days. That's how it was. So it
Okay.
was very. Then I moved on from there. I moved again on a horizontal movement to working with spices and spices company, and I think it was a wonderful shift for me, not only from the place perspective, but also from the job perspective. Wonderful shift it was.
Okay. So what is happening at the spices company after this?
So, so in fact, spices company, I'm actually, I would say, I'm indebted to the company and promoter of the company, which was Sanjay Mariwala at that time. I mean, they're all part of the Mariwala family, the
Okay.
famous Marico group, and that.
Parachute
Sanjay
then.
Mariwala was the MD, is still my friend. Yeah, no, this is different from Parachute. They are cousins.
Oh, okay. 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 Right.
Both
But they were into,
spices
actually, that company was into
business
oils and this was into spices.
brothers.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they are different.
Okay. Right.
Even, even then, he was in spices in Kerala. New thing in a book, and he will hand over the book to me. He will say, PGS, you need to implement this. So that's how I
Okay.
started learning a lot. And
Okay.
believe me or not, I never hesitated in taking up a job where I had no knowledge.
Okay.
So he assigned me a job of computerizing the entire manufacturing system data,
Okay.
and I had
So
no
that's
coding
where your
knowledge.
shift to,
I had,
okay, that's where the shift happened. Okay.
yeah,
All Six Sigma, Lean Six
exactly, and I
Sigma,
had
and
no
all these
knowledge.
things came in from there.
That
Okay.
was after that. That was after that.
Okay.
Lean Sigma
Okay.
was after
Okay.
this job. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That was much later. But here it was absolutely no knowledge about computers or software coding, etc., etc. I learned all of them from the vendors.
Okay.
But you learn. The idea is you learn.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
went on to build an ERP in early 90s, okay, in a technology which is not known to people nowadays called Fox Pro. That
Okay.
ERP was running for at least, that ERP survived at least 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
In-house, home-built ERP. And then I
Okay.
started thinking of, because I didn't know practically anything other than sales and marketing by then. And I said,
Hmm.
now it's time for me to do something on my own. And that's when I started thinking where to go and what to go. And I
Right.
also had the fortune of interacting with environment consultant in early 90s who was ex-Sanmar person.
Okay.
A very fatherly figure. That's how I moved to Chennai and started my own consulting. And it is after that I got exposed to Six Sigma and all other things. So I think that was, and my exposure to even quality management system was in last company where I worked, which was the Cancor Flavors, where we had consultants coming from UK to work on it, because in early 90s you didn't had so many people in India who had expertise in those systems. So we had people coming from UK, and so that gave me an exposure to interact with Westerners, the Western culture, you know, the customers outside India. That was, I think, a great experience, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So what comes through is that it's that you don't, starting from the first job that you had. Very often it means that you can either fit into a role or you can keep expanding the boundaries of your own role. And the companies that you work in have no problem with you expanding the boundaries and doing more. In most cases, the problem is when people then decide
Absolutely.
that this is what I'm good at and this is all I'll do. Then their entire worldview shrinks. Whereas, like you said, if it's whether it's
Exactly.
managing a chlorine canister or a cylinder that was leaking, or having to put in place a computerized system to manage the process, you start off in most cases without really understanding what are the contours of what you need to do, and then you understand it as you go along.
Correct.
So you are going through a phase
And I
when,
would,
yeah,
correct.
so you
Correct.
don't understand
I must
exactly
add one
what
more
it is
very
you
important
learn.
thing in the
Yeah,
can.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
Uh,
think at times people have this thing
I
that
I
I'm good at
understand well
this.
that I am going to learn.
Yeah. Or they say I'm good at
Yeah,
this, I'm not good at this. So they make these categorizations and they build it within themselves to say that, or it is within comfort zones. I like doing this, I don't like doing this. In which case,
so
those become
it's okay to
additional
categorize. It's okay
barriers.
to categorize.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Venu, it
That's
is okay to categorize. What is not okay is to start creating a box around it.
okay.
So it's good to know that what I don't know, but I should not become
Yeah.
a box around it, and then I should
Okay.
learn that part of it. And on the
Okay.
spices
Okay.
business, I must add on to you saying that
Huh.
when I joined the company was facing a high court case on pollution.
Okay.
And in 1.5 years, I made the company win state award on environment.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and
So
that is how you I mean and do it. No,
yeah. No, I think right from the time we started interacting, which was your Threads of Excellence, and that was a wonderful program that you organized to ensure that excellence was a
along
process. Yeah,
KPMG.
and not just an event. Yeah, that's true. And the fact that you moved towards that is something that.
Correct.
So, so that's the thing. At that time, were you as, or has spirituality always been a part of your mix right from your early days? Or is it something that you have grown to, uh, you know, do more of as you got older? For example, you do a whole lot of pujas at home, you go
No,
to, huh,
temples. In fact, I have a temple
yes,
at home itself. So
yes,
no, I think it was there in some form or other right from the beginning for me. Some form or other, it was
okay,
there right from the beginning. So the only thing is that it used to be little what is called in a different type, different way. The content of those changed with time, but it was there from the
okay,
beginning. I think I uh, cultivated an interest towards that. Yes, in the last 4 or 5 years, the interest has increased, and possibly it's also linked to my age and career stage where I am. But
yeah,
otherwise, the interest was there right from the beginning. Yeah,
okay,
right from the beginning. Even my school days itself, I used to be involved in various pujas and things like that. So,
okay. So, when you see the spiritual and the business, you've managed to go along parallel tracks and keep them without one really, getting in the way of the other. Because ultimately, it's a question of most people look at success or whatever it is based on material, uh, you know, uh, gains that they make. But in your case, it's as much of a spiritual gain as it is about knowledge of the environment in which you work in. Plus, you're fully clued into the way technology adaptations have made uh, life very different for companies today.
true,
So
true.
you start with an environment where you say it is plus 50 degrees Celsius. You then move into a place where you have to then change the entire, computerization of the entire thing. Then you work in spices, and then you get into quality control, and then you figure out, okay, how do I implement Six Sigma practices? All the while you're taking, there are certain base things which have always been there: your ability to get along with people, your ability to sort of understand the environment in which you function, and how to enrich the uh, aptitude and the attitude of people working with you. But how do you balance this out? What do
Correct.
you think? Because work life balance is made a big thing of today, but I don't think you've had much of a
So,
problem achieving it.
yeah. So the problem is again goes into that boxing. Most
Okay.
people treat work and life as two different things, and that's
Okay.
where they have challenge to balance. I don't consider work and life are two different things.
Okay.
My work is part of my life. So when
Okay.
something is part of you, you don't need to balance it. But having
Okay.
said that, one of the reasons people find it difficult to do is also because that two, three things which happens. One, your ability to give up is important. At some point in
Okay.
time, you should be able to give up. I don't want to do this. There is somebody else who can do it. I need to give up. And when I
Okay.
say give up, I really mean give up. Okay. And this is not easy for many people because for give up, people are taking risk. When you give up, you take risk. And you need to build that appetite at risk. Otherwise, you won't be able to continue to do that. Second, I think if you are very clear in terms of how you will manage if something goes wrong, and you have that confidence, I think you won't worry about it. Today, the challenge is, which you mentioned it in some time back also, is that we are so narrowed in our thinking process, so narrowed in our domain area and things like that. I don't even want to understand what is next. So alternate is missing.
Okay.
What would I do next? You ask most managers what you want to do next. People have no clue about it,
Okay.
because you are stuck, and your next is not beyond the titles that you can think of. Whereas the next has to
Ah,
come based on the knowledge that you want to think. So,
I
so
think that's a very
even
important
today,
point.
for me, after,
Yeah.
yeah. So even today, for me, as I get into the stage where I am now operating these companies and working here, I have picked up to learn the executive coaching,
Okay.
because
Okay.
to do guide people, I need to have a better way of guiding them. So I got into executive coaching. I'm still going through the process.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and that I think is expansion, which is important for people. And expansion has to be based on the knowledge, not just based on the money and the titles and things like that.
Right. Right.
I'm not saying title and money are not important. They are extremely important, but not at the cost of the knowledge.
Right. Right. That balance is another set of things, which, and I think that's the whole point. I think that's a very important point, that if the objective is the next title, you're actually constraining yourself, because then you're only looking at saying, how can I get that attached to my name or my designation or whatever it is. And oh, it's almost, yeah,
Correct, correct.
you've been talking for almost 50 minutes. So one of the things that I'd like to wrap this up on is the transition. That is, you start in a job with the skills that you have, you build on those skills. A lot of those skills you learn and you master them over time. And then you move, hopefully, into a position where you're commanding a team out of which you have got to get work done. So you shift from doing the work yourself to providing the guidance and the mentorship necessary. So for you, what has this process been?
So I will. So I think if I look at my traverse from an employment to running my own business, consulting, and then again employment, and I don't know what I will do after a year or two. But the
Okay.
point is, I don't see this. Actually, I don't even see this as transition. A lot of people see this as a transition. I don't even see this as a transition, because
Okay.
what am I doing? What am I doing in every job? What am I doing? I'm managing the environment in which I have been put in. And the environment include the people there, environment include the business there. And end of the day, I am still very fond of the famous book by Goldratt Nialu Gol. What is the objective of any business? To make money, to make more money,
Okay.
right? And as long as that clarity is there, it doesn't matter whether it's devices or you are selling an IT software. The people are different, the skill set are different. You still need to manage them. And relationship with people is what is more important, whether he is shift operator or a software coder. So I think
Yeah.
I never experienced the challenges of transition. I did experience challenges of learning curve, because some environment it takes longer to learn, some takes faster to learn. So there could be challenge of speed of learning curve, but not a challenge of what is called transitioning into one role to another role. And all of us do that, isn't it? From college you transition to employment, then you transition from under the parents to your wife or spouses,
Right.
then you transition as
Right.
mother or father, then you transition grandfather. I mean, all these are transitions in life.
Yes. Yes. So why should they be any different in the job? Because you're doing it instinctively.
Exactly.
Yes, you make mistakes, but you learn. and then you pick up, you
Exactly.
learn how to do things, and it's
Exactly.
not as if you stop making mistakes. The problem is when you stop learning
Right.
from them. So, but uh,
I
when
no.
you
So I will tell you more important thing there. More important thing
okay,
is, Venu, just to correct one thing there. More important thing, your willingness to do mistake is more important.
yes,
The problem with
very
many
true.
is that I'm afraid of making mistake. All I'm
Yes,
saying is that don't be afraid of making mistakes.
yes, yes.
You will learn.
No, that is so true, because unless you make a mistake, you're not going to find another way forward. Yes, that particular thing
Correct.
may be a mistake, but it really doesn't. But in today's world, it's almost as if it's success is seen as the only what do you say, yardstick, whereas the success is intermittent. Failure is the default state. At least that is the way that happens is, yes, you will keep
You.
making.
Yeah.
There isn't a single
So
way
I
in
have
which.
no process as yardstick.
Yeah. Okay.
Venu, I have never a problem with a success as a yardstick.
Okay.
When I define my success based on what Venu believes is success.
Right.
I need to define
100%.
my success for myself. It is not dependent on others.
Very true. Very true.
Today, unfortunately,
And
we
that,
define our successes based on others.
yes. But for most people, that becomes the point, right? It is comparison. It is about success is always measured
Exactly.
in material terms. It is measured in designation terms. It is so it becomes, for some people it becomes impossible. So that's what I wonder. How do you reconcile the spiritual and the material? Because you're involved in you lose yourself in that world when you are on a spiritual journey, like you said. Even recently, you've gone to Shabrimala so many times that you don't remember the number of years that you've done it. One is that you are able to do it because you launch into it. So it's almost as if physically and mentally you're still looking at testing the borders or the limits of whatever you do. Is that one of the things which that you
True.
continue to expand on that?
True. I think there are two things which is important, Venu, in this, where people, and I have seen you become aware. Many times people don't, they try to copy others. Don't try. I need to know what I need to know what I like. Okay. And I don't, then I need to start thinking, what is my success? I should stop comparing my colleagues. I should stop comparing my peers. I should stop comparing my, families, friends. When each one is of them. I mean, I can keep cribbing about that Ambani is making so much of money in the world, but I am not Ambani. I am Subramaniam, and Ambani is not Subramaniam. So I think we need to understand myself and then try to structure my success accordingly.
Okay.
Then I would be happy and successful both.
Okay. So I think somewhere there is that whole, you have understood for yourself what that which is where I wonder, this. So if you look at a career, the entire definition of how a career pans out, then would you break it up into stages, or would you say that the best way to do it is to understand the environment and then respond and learn in order to move to the next stage?
So first of all, for me, career is not stages. It's a continuum.
Okay.
It's a continuum. So it's not that a
Okay.
stepping stone. So it's not a stepping ladder. It's a
Okay.
smooth curve that goes,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Second, I think important from career perspective is I need to understand what would make me happy, what would make me
Okay.
satisfied, and
Okay.
work towards that. It's not just the environment. it is just not me, it is also what is the interaction between me and the environment.
Okay.
I can be in great environment, but if I am not interacting with environment, my life will be hell,
Right.
right?
No good.
And I can be in 15 degree centigrade, but I have the. So
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
true.
not just the environment, but it is also me and the interaction between me and the environment.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful.
Stop complaining
I
about environment. Stop complaining about environment.
Great. On that note, then, Tejas, thank you for your time. I, uh, these are things that we've not covered. We normally tend to
My
stick
pleasure.
to, yeah, our the books we've read, the things that we. So this was a wonderful
Books.
means of knowing how you got to where you are today, because I think there are a lot of these, and like you said, success, everything, stages, a career is a continuum. And by defining and pushing the levels of your interest and finding out what that is ultimately what the so whether it's the first job or the job that you're in right now, there are certain things that have not changed at all, and there are certain things which you continue to discover. Okay.
Correct.
So thank you very much for making it the
For this opportunity
launch.
also,
My pleasure, PJS. And